So I decided to hunker down on one program and learn Midjourney. So I'm here today to share that knowledge that I've learned and give you a step-by-step tutorial on the setup and the program features and everything else about Midjourney. So that way, when you leave this video, you're gonna be able to curate the images and designs that you have in your mind and be able to get the most out of Midjourney and bring them to life. So without further ado, let's jump into the video. So the first thing you're gonna need to do is get a Discord account. And you'll need this because at the moment, this is the way Midjourney runs its prompts and how you're gonna be able to create the images. So head on over to the site and download it, or just create an account and use the browser version. Either works, you just need to sign up. And just as an FYI, I'm gonna have all of the important information and links in the description below. So if you get lost, just remember that those are there for you. But once Discord is set up, head on over to Midjourney and click sign in at the bottom right corner, and this is going to bring up a window for Discord to sign in on. Once you do that, it's going to bring you over to Midjourney in either the Discord app or the browser, and it's going to ask you to authorize the app. Hit authorize, and then you're logged in on Midjourney. Now let's go back to Discord and talk about it quickly. If you don't know what Discord is, it's essentially the same kind of idea as like Microsoft Teams, where there's gonna be channels and people will use it to chat, share information, and so forth. It's really common among the gaming community, and it's just a really awesome app to utilize. So Midjourney operates within servers. So servers are gonna be found on the left-hand side, and then just to the right of that is gonna be where all of those channels are within that server, which is where you go in to kind of write, chat, and do all of those things. So as you can see, when you're in Midjourney, it's quite a bit overwhelming. So let's show you how to create your own server and add Midjourney bot to it. So that way you can kind of filter out what you don't need, and that way you have just a log of your own creations as well. So to do this, head on over to the left-hand side, hit the plus button, and add a server. Create your own, and then choose what you want. Give it a name of your choice, and then you have a server that's yours. Now from here, let's add in the Midjourney bot, so that way we can start using Midjourney in our server. To do that, head on back over to the Midjourney server, hit the show member list button, which can be found on the top right of Discord, scroll down and find Midjourney bot. Then select it and hit add app. It will then ask you what server to add it to and give it authorization, and you should see the message in your server saying Midjourney appeared. Then you know you're ready to go. Now, before we jump into the tutorial on how we start creating prompts, let's just talk about the pricing options quickly. You can see your account via the midjourney.com website, and then hitting your account in the bottom left. I'm not gonna go over all of the plans, but basically you just need to know that you get more generations with a larger plan. But with that said, I've been using the basic plan for a few months now, and I haven't gone through my limit so far, and I use this quite often now for work and for the channel and for personal exploration, so just keep that in mind. And I would say honestly, for the 8 to 10 bucks a month, it's definitely well worth it with what I'm about to show you. So let's go back to Discord and start to look at Midjourney in its most basic form, and then we're gonna ramp it up so that way we can start to create some really cool things. So the first thing we should do before we do anything is we should just type in / in the message box down here, and we'll be able to see all of the options that show up from Midjourney. Think of this as your home base to check whenever you're lost or trying to start some sort of action within Midjourney. You're always going to need this / in whatever prompt you do. Then from here, the next thing I would suggest to do is type in /settings and hit enter. This is going to show you all of your toggles, versions, and options for Midjourney at that time. So when you go and type in a prompt in or make changes, this is where it's gonna pull that base information from. So this is where we would come if we wanted to change the version, how much style variance there is, and so forth. Now, a little bit later on in the video, we'll talk about the more advanced options here and how we can change this without coming here using parameters. But in general, this is a really good keep in the back of your mind idea when you're starting to create your images. All right, with that aside, let's get creative. So in order to create your first prompt, you need to type in /imagine. Imagine is going to be how you create images. Let's try this by doing landscape architecture rendering, sunny day. Then just hit enter, and you'll see that it will start to create 4 images. This might take a minute or so just be patient, and then you're gonna have 4 different ideas that it spits out for you. Now from here, you're gonna see that there are 9 image boxes that you can choose from after it's created its initial generation. The U will stand for upscale, and what that does is it allows you to upscale the image, or it allows you to have more customization on a single image that you like. Now they are numbered 1 through 4 because each one correlates to an image, so 1 is top left, 2 is top right, 3 is bottom left, and 4 is bottom right. So let's say we wanted to upscale this image that we like here. We would just select the one that we like in order and then upscale the image, and this will make it a higher quality for us. Now let's say you liked that photo. If you want to save it, you can either right click right in Discord and hit save. This will save a web version of the file, which isn't the greatest. So in my mind, I think you should always go to the Midjourney account, hit my images, and then download from there that you like. Now, additionally, within the upscale tabs, you can also choose to zoom out or pan in any direction with the arrows, and Midjourney will essentially preserve that image that it's created for you initially and add to those extents either from a zoom out or from a pan. Next is going to be the V, and that will stand for variation. And again, the numbers are exactly the same, and that's why they're all spelled out like so. Now what variation does is it takes the image that you like and it creates something very similar to the one that you've chosen. So let's try that out. As you can see, it gave us 4 images that are very similar to the one that we chose. In general, I would say variation for the most part is very subtle, and it sort of keeps the overall big lines and composition intact. And the last one is the one that looks like the refresh symbol. And what this will do is it will make a remix of that image that you like. This will get a bit more variation in the composition as opposed to using the variation command. It can be a great option to use if you want to keep the same idea, but give it a little bit more design freedom. But that is essentially the Imagine tool in the most basic form. So let's look at the next feature that you could use to create an image by using the Blend tool. Now the Blend tool takes images that upload to Discord and it will mash them together to create an image. Now you can combine up to 5 images, but for example purposes, let's show you how to do it with 2. So first you need to upload the image to Discord. To do that, just hit the plus button and add the image, or just drag and drop the image of your choice. Then type /blend and add in your 2 images and hit enter. This will again take a minute or so to create, and then it's going to spit out those 4 new images for you. Now again, you'll be greeted with the same options afterwards that we talked about, which could do those upscales, the remixes, and variations. But that is essentially the Blend tool in a nutshell. Now, the last tool is the Describe tool. And this tool will take an image of your choice, and then it's going to spit out 4 different scenarios that it thinks will recreate that image for you. So this is a super valuable tool to use for research in Midjourney because it can really help you understand what Midjourney values and what it uses as interpretations for images and ideas that you like. So just keep this in mind as you're kind of growing through the program. I know it's a very visual program in nature, but learning the computer and the software is just as much of the battle to creating what you want and being able to use the Imagine prompt in the way that you want to use it. So after putting in our image, this is what it thinks you would need to say in order to kind of recreate the image that we see here. But that is Midjourney in its most basic form. You're going to be mostly using the Imagine prompt, and you could start to definitely run with that if you really wanted to, but if you want to start to create the images and get closer to bringing those ideas in your head to life, we need to take a much deeper dive into understanding Midjourney, so let's do that now. So of course, let's talk about the Imagine prompt first, because the Imagine prompt is what 90% of your day-to-day in Midjourney will be like. So it can be broken down into 3 sections. You have your first section, the image URL, the second section, the prompt, and the third section, parameters. So let's start with the first third, the image URL. This is a purely optional stage, but you can use a combination of a precedent image or something you drew with a prompt that you write out to really get some more honed in results that will end up a lot closer to your desired idea than if you tried to create that from thin air. So let's test this out. So let's search for a New York City street and copy the image address. Then let's type in /imagine, paste a link, then hit space, and then type in your prompt. Let's do New York City street, eye-level view, Brooklyn brownstone row house apartments, natural tones, and daylight lighting. And then for comparisons, we'll run another /imagine where we do the exact same prompt, but we don't include the URL link. And as you can see, both actually do a really great job at achieving our image. But the one with the image URL is much more close to the original image, especially in composition. So that is basically the power of the image URL. Not a lot of people know about it. It's a really huge hack in Midjourney, and it can help so much with designers and architects in helping hone in the color range, the vision and composition of what we're trying to do and represent. So just keep that in mind. You can use a baseline drawing with like very good composition or a rough sketch and then combine it with a prompt, and it will start to bring those loose sketches to some sort of a reality for you. So that is the first third of the commands, and it's also the easiest third of all the commands. So let's talk about the hardest one next, which is the middle one, or the prompt. So to write better prompts, we need to really understand and break down the craft of writing it. And from what I've found out, these are some of the considerations that you should be thinking about when you are writing them. The first one is looking at the length. So the length of a prompt is not going to make your render better or increase the quality, but instead it's going to help you control the output. Think of every word that you use as an equal weight. So say you used 3 words. It would equally spread out those 3 words and then fill in the gaps that it thinks for the image. Whereas if you used 20 words, it's going to take all 20 of those as equal, so you could essentially get a more fleshed out result from it. However, too many words can confuse Midjourney and can result in some weird geometry things. So in general, a way to avoid that is by not using conflicted words or words that mean multiple things. One that comes to mind is crane. Crane could of course be a bird, or it could be the construction crane. So you just want to take Midjourney's chance of interpreting it one way or the other out of the equation. And on that same note, you also want to try to avoid using plurals. Midjourney, for whatever reason, does a much better job of understanding a number or idea associated with the object, rather than saying many, a lot, or something like trees or people or things like that. Having a specific number to it will help Midjourney create a better, more realistic image. Next, there is no difference between a full sentence or a word salad. So you really don't need to worry about having a grammatically correct sentence. So with that said, it's actually a lot better to just write out exactly what you want in the shortest way possible with the use of commas. Another thing that no longer matters anymore with Midjourney, or it doesn't matter nearly as much, is the order of the words in the prompt. This is because Midjourney at this point sees pretty much everything as the same in terms of value, but there is a way for you to break up a prompt to help Midjourney break down what's most important, and that's through the use of hard breaks. So to use a hard break, you would do 2 colons followed by a space and then continue the prompt. What this does is it takes everything you said before the colons as a prompt and everything you said after as a prompt. So with that in mind, let's walk through a couple scenarios of how you might approach using Midjourney. To start, you really need to break down and think about the key elements of your idea. The way I like to think of this is think about common descriptive words that are used in landscape architecture and urban design, or whatever you're trying to create. Ones that come to my mind would be subject, medium, composition, environment, lighting, color palette, mood, point of view, forest type, paving tones, tree tones, style, designer, details, textures, and time of day. These are just some key elements that you could use, but essentially every time you do this, just think about the description words that might help explain and get to that image that you're trying to arrive at. You could just fill in the blanks for those on your own, or you can try this out with the use of ChatGPT to help produce a bunch of different ideas and see what ChatGPT comes out with a little bit more of an elevated style. In ChatGPT, all you need to do is type out the following. Create a table that breaks down the following key elements for a landscape architecture image, where each of the key elements is a column: medium, composition, environment, lighting, color palette, mood, forest type, style, detail, and textures. What this will do is it will spit out a bunch of keywords that you can then use in your prompt to help describe what it is you're trying to create. So let's just take one of them and insert it into our prompt. Now, how I like to use this is I like to use this to generate words and ideas for anything that I'm thinking of that will help arrive me to that thing. So what I'll do a lot of times is I'll just exchange the first part and keep the create a table part, and I'll just exchange out what those key elements and what those key descriptors that I'm trying to use are. Because for me, this helps out so much in terms of language to use for Midjourney. So you can either take these results at face value, or you can kind of interpret it and help guide you in what you think you should be including. But that is the second section of Midjourney broken down. And again, with this one, I really encourage you to spend a lot of time and play around with the prompt as much as possible and keep track of your results and see what you get and how you can kind of keep track of those things so you can get to that image faster. But in general, you can get really far with the combination of the URL and a really nice prompt. But in order to really bring it home, we need to understand that last section, parameters. Now, parameters are options added to your prompt that will change how your image generates. So they can change something like the aspect ratio, switch between Midjourney versions, and lots more. So let's cover them. In order to do a parameter, what we need to do is at the end of a prompt, we would hit space and then dash dash followed by our parameter like so. The first one is the dash dash aspect or dash dash AR, and this will change our aspect ratio for the drawing. In version 5, we can do any ratio, but I usually like to stick to 3:2, 16:9, or 1:2, and the default for this is going to be a 1:1. Next is the dash dash chaos. Chaos will change how varied your results will be, so the higher value you choose will result in more varying results between your 4 grid outcomes. The default for this is actually 0. I like to use this very early on in the creation period, as it can really help generate some really unique and different ideas within that one single creation. Then we have the dash dash no parameter. The no parameter is how we can exclude things from our drawing, because in Midjourney, saying no cars isn't enough to get no cars, because it actually just takes the word car at face value and puts them in, so it's really frustrating. So by using this parameter, we can really filter out the information and content that we don't want. Next is the dash dash quality parameter. This is going to change how much time it spends on that initial render and how fleshed out you want your idea to be. The default is 1, and you can use 0.25, 0.5, and 2. And it's basically, again, just going to let you decide how much detail you want that first 4 grid to show. Then we have the dash dash repeat parameter, which will run a job, otherwise known as a prompt, and it's going to run it multiple times for the base version, and we can do this up to 4 times at once. This is also the same as the remix button that we talked about earlier, so keep that in mind. After that, we have the dash dash seed parameter, which will allow you to write a prompt and pair it with a previously run job that you've done to achieve an almost identical look to your original prompt that you used earlier. This can be really helpful when you're trying to get something that has a similar look to something. By including the seed at the end, you'll hopefully get a composition that looks very similar to that original image. To get your seed and the job number from an image, all you have to do is go to the reactions icon in the result box here and use an envelope on the image, and Midjourney will DM you the seed and the job number. Then after that, we have the stop parameter. This will let you stop a render partway through the creation. We can use this to create half-baked ideas or blurry images that we don't want fully fleshed out yet. After that, we have the dash dash style parameter. This can replace the default aesthetic for Midjourney. So by doing style raw, it creates something more natural to the eye as opposed to a Midjourney look, and pulls a lot heavier from the database of images rather than just using the Midjourney style. We have the dash dash stylize parameter. This will change how much freedom for interpretation Midjourney has based on your prompt. The default here is set to 100, and you can go anywhere between 0 and 1,000. This is another great one to experiment with if you can't get it to kind of accept your prompt more literal, or if you wanted to take your prompt very subconsciously and then go run with it. Then we have the tile parameter. This one is awesome. We can use this to create seamless textures. If you've been in this space for a while, you know that trying to find a seamless texture is the most annoying thing ever, alongside with PNGs and all those things. So we can save tons of time by just creating one here. After that, we have the version parameter, which is how we would be able to switch between versions without going through the settings. Be sure to refer to Midjourney to see what each version will do for you. Next is dash dash IW or image weight. This will be used with our image URLs to tell Midjourney how important that image is with our prompt creation. We can use 0.25, 0.5, 1, or 2, and the default is 1. This can be really helpful if you're having issues with Midjourney taking that initial image that you included to literal, or if it's not doing it enough. And lastly is the weird parameter. This is exactly how it sounds, so I'll let you discover the outcomes for yourself. But that is pretty much everything you need to know about the structure and the makeup of Midjourney. So theoretically, you have all of the knowledge now that you would need in Midjourney to create exactly what you want. But the caveat is that you still need to spend a lot of time figuring out the program and playing around with it, but at least you have a much better understanding of what things are being used and how it's being affected within the Midjourney program. So for me, this was like learning my tools. This was like learning how to use the pencil, pen, computer. Then I spent a lot of time just playing around with it in order to get those results I'm looking for. So really start to think of this no different from learning to draw. I started to pay really close attention to the words I'm using and the images that came out of it based on the words. Find better references, all of those things are gonna really help you out in terms of your creation. Just stay patient. I promise you, if you did this for an hour a day for a week, you would come out of the end of that week way differently than the beginning, and you'd be able to create things that really will start to blow your mind and maybe potentially change the way you think about doing your design process. So if you have any questions, be sure to drop a comment or send me a message on Instagram, and I'll provide you as much insight as I can as I continue to go down this rabbit hole. And if you are a landscape architect or urban designer, I highly encourage you to follow along with me on this journey, so that way as we continue to grow with AI, we'll be able to learn together as a holistic group and be able to implement AI into landscape architecture and urban design in the way that we as designers want to use it. Anyways, that's all for today's video, so thank you all for watching. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give this a like, share it with your colleagues, I would really appreciate it. As always, if you want to learn more about our great field of landscape architecture and urban design, check out my channel for more. Alrighty, take care, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.